Hi, I'm Julie. I want to start by saying thank you to Alan and Reese, our hosts, for bringing us together tonight in this really beautiful venue. Thank you, you guys. It's incredible. I also want to say thank you, Alan, for the NC-17 warning. Because I don't know that I could say all these words and also not speak my native language, which so thank you for that. So I'm Julie. Sybil and I are cousins, and in our family we have sibling cousins. So she was my sister cousin. My brother Jim is here. I can't see Jim. Where is Jim? Oh, he's right there. Okay. I had to train my eyes on you. I'm like, okay, there's Jim. His brother cousin, and my sister Jane, also sister cousin. And we come by that because we are descended from some pretty epic people, a group of siblings known as the Johnson Seven. 5 sisters, 2 brothers. They were our parents' parents, and warm, loving, and pretty fucking mischievous, I would say. And so our line comes through our grandma Myrtle Henderson, and so my mom, Jan, known as Granny Janny, but also Sybils' auntie, Aunt Nancy, Sybils' mom, Aunt Judy, and Uncle Bill, who has since passed. So, and I'm not even going to tell you all the other names that these people have, because we each have, all of them have at least 3 or 4. But I just wanted you to know who's who in the zoo here. We have lots of cousins because there were 7 very loving siblings, and they produced a lot of cousins. And a lot of them are here, and a lot of them gathered last night, which was really lovely as well. They all have multiple names too, and it's not uncommon. I think somebody said to go to a family reunion and give somebody a hug and a kiss and say, "Who are you?" So. I knew Sybil as Sibby Lou. Her name was Sybil Louise, and as we were looking at these pictures, well, she was irritated by that for a really long time until I think I maybe wore her down. So I was allowed to call her that. But the reason that I called her that is if you see all these pictures when she was a little baby, little cherubic thing, and I remember this one time, she was wearing that little alfalfa sprout hairdo. She was a little baby, and we were at our house, and she was sitting on the top of my dad's leather chair and sliding down and saying, "Sibby Lou." So there was a time when she loved that name, and she did it over and over, "Sibby Lou." So that's how we got here. I just adored her from the start. She was my littler cousin, and I was the youngest one, so I had a younger one to just really adore and root for. It was so great. And tonight, I'm here to talk about this period of time from high school, college, etc., onward. And what's so great about that is that as cousins, that's kind of the time in life when you look at your cousins and you say, I actually want to hang out with you whether our parents told us to or not. And so you start planning to do things together, and you start scheming, and you might be sneaking outside to do something you should not do, at the family gatherings and whatnot. But you become friends, and you choose to spend time together, and that is really what started happening along about when Syb hit high school. I was, 4 years older. High school, I didn't go to high school with her, but I know she was super popular, and it sounds like she was kind of a Ferris Bueller type, right? So everybody loved Sybil in the way that everybody, you know what I mean. For those who are in the right age band, you know what I mean. And you know that feeling when someone has your back? You do, because you knew Sybil. She described herself in high school as the bully's bully. She, if somebody was going to be punching down at somebody, they were going to have to go through Sybil. And not only, was she lovely, but she was also a brick house. She was really strong, and she would kick your ass if she needed to. And if you were being mean to somebody, you shouldn't be mean to. So that's how she described herself. And she could do that because she was really a friend to everybody. She was a great student. So she was friends with the great students. She was an athlete, of course. She was a swimmer. She was a soccer player. She was just an absolute star in that regard. She was the class president, and she was also a band nerd. She had a really natural gift for playing the flute. And she could, just sight read really effortlessly, and it was just a really beautiful gift. And so her mom, Nancy, wanted to sort of keep her on the flute. So she bought her this beautiful flute, and Sib, kept taking lessons, but there were also boys, and she was really boy crazy, and so she was like, yeah, maybe a little less so on the flute, but that's how that went. For a brief time in high school, she chose to play the baritone sax, and I'm talking about that because I also played the baritone sax, and when Sib chose to do that, I just felt really special, because I know she did that because I had done it too, and that's just one of many times she made me feel special. I know she made everyone in this room feel special. That's why we're here. I'm just going to breathe and stay in my body. So we moved from high school on into college, and all our growing up, I always wanted Sybil and her family to come move to California so they'd be closer to us, and we talked about how great that would be. I think we even set Nancy up with our PE teacher, Mr. Benton, to see if there could be a little something that would go on there. They went on a date, and so we were trying to make that happen, and it did not. But eventually, I moved to the Pacific Northwest. I came here for graduate school. And she was in college at the time, and we got to really, visit each other a little more often, and I got to meet her swim buddies who are here. Yeah, they're like her people, right? And I went to a couple swim meets, and in that time we were dating and we were single girls, and so there was fun, and then there was heartache, and we would go and work that out in the pool hall. We'd shoot pool and plug the jukebox with Tori Amos songs because it was the 90s. Yeah. And then we started our careers, and we had weddings, and we bought our first houses, and those are all really big life changes, and that's enough for most people. That's going to challenge most people enough. But Sybil was maybe not as challenged, and so she chose to meet a lifelong goal of swimming across the English Channel. That's how she needed to add that to that whole stage of life. And so she trained her balls off, she swam a lot, and she did all the things she had to do. And you've probably seen her video of the channel swim and all these things, but when she talked about it, as she was approaching it, actually I forgot. I'm going back to a little part in my notes here. When she did that, it was a dream for her, but it wasn't enough for her to have an individual accomplishment, yay, Sybil. She had to make sure if she was going to do something big, a lot of other people would benefit too. And so she started a nonprofit called Just Water and Air so that she could raise awareness for people with asthma. Because even if you have asthma, if you just have a crazy force of will and a lot of hours to spend swimming, you can swim across the English Channel. You can do what it is that you want to do. And she wanted people to think if I can do it, you can do it. And so that's how she kind of orchestrated that whole thing. But it was really hard, and she talked about it in her video, and she talked about it other times, and she talked about it with us, feeling like being in a washing machine, and that she just had to just keep swimming, right? That's the whole deal. That's when that started. Just keep swimming, even if you feel like you're going nowhere. And a lot of what got her through that, she talked about really feeling her dad's presence through the whole swim. She thought about her dad and felt his presence, and she just longed for him her whole life. And she really felt him with her on that swim. Sib was also a teacher. A few years later, after the channel, I got a chance to take a swim lesson from her because I was learning how to do open water swimming, I'm terrified of deep water, so that was a thing. But she took me out in the river, and she showed me how much power that you could get from our Henderson hips. And like there's a lot of power in that, in the swimming. And so it was great to sort of see her in her brilliance and experience that and really learn how to swim from her. And, you know, not long after that, we used our Henderson hips to produce babies. Like, they're also good for that. And so as we became moms, we also became aunties. And my son Calvin was born, and then my son Lukey was born, and then Reese was born, who is not here. He was sitting right there a minute ago. It's all right. And as we became aunties, I think, you know, we had always loved each other's moms so much and had really special relationships with our aunties. And so it just felt like really sort of hitting this mark in life of fulfillment. I remember we each told each other stories about these times when our babies were crying and we took one from the sleep-addled, brain-fogged mom and like rocked the little baby to sleep. And so we were able to do these sweet things for each other and sort of delight in their awesomeness. And you know, they're men now. Like, you've seen Reese. Like, mine are 6'2" and 6'4", like they're men. And watching them grow and connect as cousins is just really gratifying for us. And there was also sadness in not being able to grow old together. And Syb did express sadness about not being able to really be an auntie for the boys lifelong and for all the cousins lifelong, because she knew how important it was to have a really special auntie. So she was sad to miss out on watching all of that. But yesterday, our son Calvin, so that beautiful flute I talked about that Nancy gave Sybils, she eventually gave that to Calvin because he plays baritone sax also, and if you do that, you got to play all the other woodwinds, and it gets very expensive. And so anyway, she gave him a flute. And so yesterday he was performing in a beautiful concert hall in Manhattan, and he played this lovely flute solo and on that flute. And I sent this to Alan, and I said, "Gosh, I wish I could tell Sybil about it." And he said, "Oh, she was there." So, you know, maybe she's getting her wish. So on her last day, I promised her that that if I get the chance, I'm going to do what we thought we would be able to do all together, which is to grow old like a proper Johnson 7 descendant should, right? And I thought I was going to have Sybil to help me with that. And at this point, I think all you fuckers are going to help me with that. Right? So I have a list of 4. I mean, like, there's more like Johnson 7 rules for living, but I have 4 that I need your help with. First, you got to play cards. And you also have to play cribbage. So raise your hand right now if you currently know how to play cribbage. Oh, that's a pretty good number in the front. All the Johnson 7 people. Those of you in the back need to start figuring out how to add to 15. Put this on your list. There's a lot of weird rules. It's fun. But yeah, you got to play cribbage, so there's that. That's the first one. You really have got to keep the game going. And if it's a good one, you just don't really let it get interrupted. And if you get a little too warm, what you do is you just strip right down to your bra and you keep playing anyway. And so, you know, if tonight is the night when it gets a little warm, you do you, right? Like, that's what Johnson 7 ladies would have done. So that's number 2. That's a way to keep the game going. Number 3 is you have to have a good beverage with you, right? My grandma would have chosen black velvet. That was her drink of choice. But you know, as we age, our tummies get a little bit sensitive. And so if your tummy gets sensitive, you know, don't worry, you don't have to stop drinking bourbon. You just add a little milk to it. That's a cocktail known as a moose milk. And so you just pour yourself a moose milk and all is gonna be fine. So that's number 3. And you definitely keep the game going, like I talked about it, and except for in this one scenario, which is if somebody heads to the piano and they start playing, everybody needs to get up and go have a sing-along. Like, just drop everything, it's time to go sing along. So that's the time when you could interrupt it. So, 4 things. Were you taking notes? There's a video for those who didn't write it down. But really, the whole vibe was to play, laugh, have a good time, love each other really hard, tell each other when your shit stinks, like also love each other, and that all starts now. And then the last thing we're gonna do, and we're gonna do this in a way that, so that Sybil taught me this special kind of hug, and we're gonna do it. And when we had to close our eyes and stuff, I started thinking about Sybil and how she would like, you know, do it and make it weird. And so I want you guys to make it weird, right? So you're gonna hug somebody, and you're gonna do it now, but you're also gonna do it all night, okay? You're gonna hug somebody, and when you hug them, normally we put our heads to the left. I want you to put your head to the right. And she taught me this. If you put your head to the right, then when your hearts touch each other, you make a heart-to-heart connection. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to find somebody to hug that way, and I want you to say, I love you, cuz. And I want you to do it right now.
I'm here.
That's what I got, yeah. Thank you, good night.